Today on From the Heart, where we tell stories of life because life is interesting. Today we have the great pleasure of having Representative Trent Kelly with us. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me here.
I'm so glad you took a moment out of your busy time and stopped to talk to us.
It is. It's always busy, but you know, it's always great to visit with friends and to talk to people who are friendly towards you.
Well, good. So we want to hear about you. Tell us about where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Union, Mississippi. A lot of people try to make it Union County, but Union is on the Newton-Neshoba line, hence the name Union.
Gotcha.
And so I grew up there in a small town, probably 1,500 people, I don't know, not a whole lot. Very small community, very close community. Great educational system in a small town. It's a separate school district, and so just lots of memories. And my mother still lives there, and so I go back and visit quite often.
Well, cool. Did you grow up in the city on a farm?
No, I grew up in actually the little small community of Neshoba, which is on the north side of Union, on the Neshoba County side, and it had a post office in the 70s, but it went away in the 70s. Very, very small town, 5-acre little plot. We had farm animals and had our own garden and those kind of things, and then my grandfather and them had a farm right there beside us, and so I used to have to help him get up cows. He had about 40 head of cows and had to do all those things, so very rural, but I wouldn't consider it, we weren't farmers, but we definitely grew our own vegetables, and much different in the 70s than it is now.
It really is. What's your favorite memory of that time?
You know, I love my granddaddy, my mother's father. He lived right behind us, and he died when I was 5. But I always loved him, and he was always cutting up with me. And I used to love the old westerns, like the Virginians and Bonanza and those things. And he used to always call me Trampas. And so I just loved him because he was full of life. And he died at 50, but he was full of life, and just I just like to remember him. And then my brother and sisters, one older, my sister's older, my brother's younger, and we just ran around and you couldn't get in a whole lot of trouble then. There wasn't a whole lot of trouble to get into, and so just family and church and all those things growing up, it was just small community, and everybody knew your business and you knew theirs.
Right, I hear you. So congratulations on your military service, and thank you, sir, for doing so and for your promotion.
Yes, that was a big event. I hate my father missed it. He would have told me, boy, that's no big deal, and he would have been, his head would have been swollen and his heart would have been full, but he would have made sure he kept me home and let me know, it's not that big a deal,
right.
Even though to him it would have been a big deal.
So how did you get involved in the military? What brought you to that point?
Well, it's Neshoba Baptist Church, which was in my backyard between my grandfather's house and my house, and we used to go walk out the back door and go when we were kids. And I remember as a small kid going and seeing those veterans on either Memorial Day or Veterans Day, and they would ask the veterans to stand up. And so those old men who were all of 40,
right?
But to me as a young child they were old, but those old farmers would stand up and they would be so proud of their service. Most of them were World War II veterans or Korean War veterans. And they were so proud, and I just, I knew I wanted to have what they had. They were so proud of those few years they'd sent in service. So in 1985, I decided to join. My father retired as a first sergeant. He was still in then, and just decided I wanted to do my part. Didn't know you could be an officer. Didn't know you got the GI Bill. I just wanted to serve my country, and I wanted to be like those farmers who were so proud of those few years they'd sent in either World War II or Korea.
Right. So where did you do your basic training?
Fort Leonard, Missouri, and so it can be. And so I went up there in May, and it can be extremely cold in May and extremely hot in May, and the days don't have to be very far apart. So it was so did basic training there, and then later came back and just found out I could be an ROTC and joined at Ole Miss, and kind of did the rest from there.
Okay, and so you went to school at Ole Miss before you started inactive?
Well, no, I joined when I was at East Central, and then I got to Ole Miss, and that fall I joined ROTC at Ole Miss. So I was a junior because I did 2 years of junior college. I graduated from junior college before I went to a 4-year university, and it joined and stayed in and was in the Guard the entire time. And I've always been a traditional Guardsman, except for the times we've been mobilized.
Okay, and so I'm at Fort Leonard Wood. They're mobile, right? they do trucks and.
Well, when I was there, all that stuff's changed over time.
Okay.
In the 80s, they were the engineer school, and I had the engineer basic training. So I've always been a combat engineer, and that's where and they are the engineer school now.
Right.
But they also do some maneuver enhancement brigades. But engineers are still a strong base of what they do at Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay, cool. And so you were deployed?
Yes, mobilized in 1990 for Desert Storm. We didn't go overseas, but we did a 6-month basically training to be ready to go over during Desert Storm. And then I went to Iraq, mobilized in 4, went to Iraq in all of 2005, and then went back again in 9 and 10. So been to Iraq twice, haven't been to Afghanistan deployed, and I think I'm past that point now. I've kind of promoted myself out of the opportunity to go anymore.
Right. I bet it's a bit different in the Arabic countries than it is in Mississippi.
In a lot of ways it is, but in a lot of ways it isn't. People ask me, in Iraq, the first time I got to be very involved and engaged with the local populace. In the second half of my tour, the first half I was a battalion operations officer, the second half I did Iraqi security forces. And the people there remind me probably of what it was like when Mississippi was much more rural than it is now, probably in the 50s or 60s, where everybody farmed, everybody had large families like we used to have in Mississippi. And most of those folks are really good folks, and all they worry about is feeding their family and making enough to get by. Now, they've got their 10% bad guys. We got our 10% here. Our 10% are criminals. Theirs are terrorists. I mean, it's a little bit of difference, but for the majority of the people, I mean, they just worry about getting by every day.
Right. Understand it, and understandably, you have a great love for families. Tell us a little bit about yours.
My father was from Decatur, and he was in the Guard, always very strong. He had a high school education, but he worked hard in the furniture industry and worked on all the machines until he wound up managing plants. My mother is from Neshoba originally, the same place that I grew up. And she is she's got her college degree, but she got it later in life. So when we were kids, it was one of those things she worked back to. And they're just really grounded people. Both of my grandparents were farmers, sharecroppers, or truck farmers, or whatever you want to call them. They were just hardworking, run-of-the-mill people. And I've had those values instilled for me from both my mother and my father. And at my promotion ceremony the other day, one of the things I most remember is my mother's always been real grounded and kept us grounded. But she used to always tell us as kids, you're not better than anybody, but nobody's any better than you. And that's a pretty good basis to go through life, to always stay humble and know you're not better no matter where you've gone or what you've seen or how much you make or, you're not better than anybody else, but no one's better than you because everything is available to you. You can do whatever you want to as long as you don't believe other people are smarter or better connected. You just work hard to get what you want.
I understand. And you have a lovely wife.
She is beautiful. She's how she puts up with me, I don't know. We met in 1987 at Ole Miss, and she was a freshman, and I was I guess probably a junior, and had been there for. She was very smart, and she's just real special, and she's from Eupora, so loved her grandmother. Her grandmother was always really, really great to me, and they were farmers, very similar in the things, but she was just such a rock. She's so tough and so inspirational. There's nothing I could have done in life that she didn't make better. And she's made everything better, and just she's my rock and my fortress. God first, but He sure put me someone here I could rely on very strongly.
A real helpmate.
Yeah, she is.
Good. And you have kids?
Have 3, John Forrest, Morgan, and Jackson, 2 boys and 1 girl. The 2 boys are the oldest and the youngest, and then my sweetie's in the middle, the perfect one, always.
The middle children think that about other
we
middle
always
children.
are. I mean, we always are. And so I'm a middle child, and she's a middle child, and she's, it's so different, the relationships you have with all your children. They're all different. They're all special. You love them all differently, none better than the other, but they all have special parts that you appreciate the most about them. And so I'm just really blessed with really wonderful children.
Well, that's great. And it's talking about family service families are somebody that you think are heroes?
Well, you hear me say that all the time. We in the service, whether you're a man, woman, it doesn't matter. Your family that supports you when you do that, none of us could do it without the family support that we get. And quite frankly, a lot of the people who have the most issues when they come back from places like Iraq or Afghanistan or from war zones that have the hardest time coping are those who don't have that core group around them that help them. And I've just been very blessed having great parents, a great brother and sister, and a great wife who helped me.
Bit of the present and now with you being in Washington, is your service affecting how you approach all that?
It helps me because this is being in Washington. People think it's a glamorous and great job and all those things, but I travel all the time. I fly up every week. I fly back every week. It's really travel intensive, and it's kind of like a mobilization or deployment. Again, without a strong wife and a strong family, it would be very difficult to do because she has to manage the day-to-day at home and do all those things that I don't have to worry about because I have such a wonderful wife who does those. So she works a job, raises those kids, and I help her as much as I can. Yeah. But trust me, I couldn't do this without my wife, who she does the really hard work. She does the yeoman's work.
Well, let's step back just a second. What made you decide to run for office?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I enjoyed being the district attorney. I loved it. It was a job. A lot of times people think of district attorney as the guy who puts people in jail. I never thought of it that way. I had a great opportunity to help a whole lot of people, whether it's helping the victims or helping those people who didn't really do really bad things and just who need kind of a direction in life. I always looked at it like that. How can I help people? How can I turn them into productive citizens? Now the bad people, the murderers and the rapists and those kind of folks, I sent them to jail and did that. And so I just looked at this when this came open. I just thought it was a greater opportunity to help more people. Because to me, it's always been about how many people can I help from the position that I'm in. And so I just thought it was the greatest opportunity to help more people.
That's a wonderful way to approach it. And it helps you stay connected.
It does. I've always got my wife and my mother to keep me humble. I have to stay connected by interacting with the community.
Right.
But good friends and family, they don't tell you what you want to hear. They tell you what you need to hear. And that's the difference between a friend and a non-friend. So you want to keep plenty of people around who will tell you what you need to hear and will tell you the truth and will help guide you and give you direction to do things the right way. Because sometimes our heart's in the right place, but we get astray, and so you need friends and family to keep you on that path to help the most people.
What has been your most distinct memory of Washington so far?
There's really not one. It's so many. It amazes me every day that I'm up there. The great people who have been there before, the great people who have walked those halls, and the overwhelming sense of responsibility you have.
I bet you still.
I represent 740,000 people or so. Wow. That's a lot of people, and I take those responsibilities really, really serious. And so it's just amazing to walk around. There's so much history up there, and you walk around and you just go, boy, if I can just do a little bit of the things that those did. But mostly, I try to make memories for other people. We love it when people from the district come up. We even treat people who aren't in the district from other places. We love to make their trip to Washington special. Right. Because although I have to go up there every week, my family doesn't. They come and visit kind of like y'all, so they get to do other things. So when we have constituents or people from home, we want to make their trip special and memorable because we understand most of them, it'll be one of the few times, if not the only time, they ever come to Washington. So we want to do something special for each and every person that comes up there.
Okay. Thank you for coming in today and speaking with us. We have enjoyed having you, and we wish you lots of luck, and we wish you safe travels.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us here today on TV 99 North Mississippi, and we hope you join us next time.